All right.
In terms of access controls and lookups, there are no, they are independent from each other, right? From lookups.
Independent.
The parent and the child are independent in terms of access controls.
Yes. So the lookup relationship. Anytime you have a lookup relationship, independent access control for the parent records and the child records. Okay. All right. So let's talk about updating our user interface. So the user interface, we have a number of different things that we can work with to customize the user interface. Those include applications, tabs, page layouts, and record types. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the first three, and then we'll talk about record types tomorrow. Okay? All right, so let's talk about applications first. So custom applications. Applications are one of the most non-intuitive or misinterpreted things that people kind of run across. In Salesforce, in Force.com platform, an application is really just a collection of tabs. Okay? It does not define sort of access control. It is simply, the reason we put it under UI or user interface is because an application is just that. It's just a user interface element. An application is available from a pick list on the upper right-hand corner. In our case, we don't have a recruiting app yet, but we will. But some of the classic off-the-shelf applications that are in Salesforce are things like sales, marketing, service and support, that kind of stuff. Okay. In addition, we can also utilize a custom logo associated with our app, so we can display, some sort of custom logo so that a user can visually see that they're in a particular app. But otherwise, it's a collection of tabs. Okay, so just think of it that way. It's simply a collection of tabs. All right. When we're creating an app, we can specify, well, what tabs are associated with this app? What's the logo? What's the GIF file or the JPEG or whatever that we want to display? We can also identify a default landing tab. So when a user selects this application, what's the default? That being said, one of the user customizations is the ability to go in and modify it to be something that they prefer. All right, we're going to come back to exercise 3.1, and we're going to talk about tabs, and then we'll do both 3.1 and 3.2 together. Okay. All right, so tabs. A tab is, once again, a user interface element. It is one of the things that are accessible inside of an application. There are three types of tabs. So there's the custom object tabs. These are associated with a particular object type, usually displaying a page layout, but not necessarily. Or for that matter, when you click on it, you see what's called a list view. You can then, starting from the recently opened records, then click on the Go button associated with the list view to get some sort of records that adhere to some sort of criteria that you're interested in looking at. Your users are able to create their own custom views. Okay. There are web tabs. Now, a web tab is if you have some sort of intranet application, something that you'd like to combine or merge into Salesforce, but it's some external application. And then the other one is a visual force page. So you can have a visual force page display when a user goes to a tab. In that way, you can create some sort of maybe custom user interface that combines two different object types. So you can do a lot of things that go above and beyond this sort of one tab, one object type of paradigm. You can do other techniques or other UIs. Okay. When you create a tab, you're going to select a tab style. That's going to affect the colorization, and there's also a little icon. Usually the icon and tab selection is everyone's favorite part of Salesforce.com. So, all right. You can also create your own custom tab styles. All right. All right. So let's jump into exercise 3.1 and 3.2.
I have a question.
Yeah, oh, let's open it up to questions. Very good.
So how many tabs can we create per application? Is there a limit on that?
There is. It's a big number. Let me look that one up. Yeah, I want to say it's, I'm not going to even guess. I remember, yeah.
All right, so if I have, let's say, like 25 tabs, I can't see all 25 tabs in one single page. So I can go through the...
By default, it scrolls to the right.
Really?
Yeah, so it does.
So if I want to search for one particular tab, how would I do that? I mean, I know what the name of the tab is.
Oh, well, within the default Salesforce UI, there's, you know, one thing to keep in mind is that you don't have to, you know, tabs are not the primary navigation facility available. So I could, for instance, search either across all, or I could, you know, based on an object type, I could create a new particular something from here. There's also a way, an alternative way to get to a record is not necessarily through its tab, but if we click here on positions, and I click on a particular position, through related lists, I can access other records. So for instance, here I can access an interviewer simply by clicking on the link, and then notice that takes me over to my interviewers, right?
Basically, these tabs are nothing but the custom objects, right? I mean,
well, if they're custom object tabs. Remember that I was saying that we could create a web tab or a Visualforce page tab. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's, any other questions? All right. So let's keep moving along with page layouts. Okay. All right, so page layouts. Page layouts allow us to, it's sort of an automatically generated user interface for our objects, okay? Really though, it's all about, other than a few different properties that we can enable in our page layouts, it's really about organization and where to place things. In terms of sort of tricky or custom UI stuff, it's definitely limited in terms of what you can do, okay? But what you can do is you can create things like custom links and place them, or custom buttons, place them within your app. You can create, you can hide fields, you can set those fields to be or read-only or required. So there's a number of things that you can do with a page layout. So let me show you within the tool how to create a page layout. So in this case, associated with the candidate object is a candidate page layout. So here's our candidate layout. What I can do is I can click on the Edit button, and this is going to pop up the page layout editor. This is a new look and feel, at least as of spring '09. Within here, first thing I want to point out is there's a contextual list of options where we can modify fields associated with the detail of a particular record. We can modify buttons. One of the things we can do is we can insert a Visualforce page as a section inside of a page layout. Same thing for S controls. We can embed S controls into our page layouts. And then related lists allows us to operate on the related list that would appear on the page layout. Okay? So let's start with fields. So if we select fields, what we're able to do is we're able to set properties, and via drag and drop we can move different fields around our page, or just completely remove them. So in this case here, this is my kind of my preview mode, and let's say for instance that I no longer wanted to display the picture ID on my page layout. All I need to do is just take this, click on it, and then drag it and then drop it off of the page up here. And what it's now does is here's my picture ID field that was basically removed from this page layout. I can also do things like move around specific fields like so. I could re-add this by dragging it and then dropping it down here into my page layout. There's some icons which represent different things. In this case, these are both they're both read-only because they're what we call formula fields, and we'll get into those in a second. But one of the things I could do is if I wanted to remove it, I could click on the X, or I could configure properties associated with the field by clicking on this wrench icon. If I click on the wrench icon, I can set up whether or not this is a read-only via this page layout or if it's required. Now, can you, so the question is, how did I get there? You just either click there, or if you double click, you can also get there. So now, if I click required here, this sets this field to be required on this page layout. If I'm using some other technique other than this web user interface to access this record, it is not required. So requiredness on the page layout only applies to when the user is editing a record via this page layout. Okay? Same thing goes for the read-only setting. Yes, question?
So how do you associate that with a tab? I'm assuming the tab is what's going to display the form.
Yeah. Let me come back to that actually. Okay, I'll come back to that. Let's talk about there's other things that we can do. We can add sections to pages. So I could add a new section by dragging a section down here. So it's just a subsection within my page to display a number of fields. Okay. I could also control the related lists. And down here, I can either remove a related list or I can edit the properties associated with it. What this is referring to is the fields, what I'm going to display. So on, for instance, in this case, an activity, there are certain fields that are associated with that. Which fields do I want to display in this related list when I'm displaying a list of records? Does that make sense? So what are the columns, in other words, in this table? There's also down here, there's buttons. These are referring to what are the buttons that are available associated with this related list, like, for instance, creating a new whatever it is. You can create buttons that exist on a related list, or you can create buttons that exist associated with a detail. So one of them operates on a single record, the other one or is attached to that related list. There's a number of things that we can do up here. For instance, we can save our page layout or do a save as, give it a different name. There's the quick save, which leaves us in the same place. Preview as, this refers to profiles. One of the things that you might do, and we'll come back to this, is enable things like field level security, where a person cannot see certain fields. In that case, by previewing it as a person of that profile, you could then see, well, how does if I was logged in as this person with this profile, how does this change how I see this layout? Okay. Question?
Yeah, when we hide fields, it's a general question. Does it change the general layout, or the layout stays the same, just the field doesn't appear there anymore? Does it shrink because the fields are not there, for example?
If you hide a field with a in a page layout, let me test that out. I don't know if it shrinks it. Yeah. Does it shrink it, or does it simply have an empty spot? So Roger was asking a question about, well, what's the association between this page layout that we're looking at, and then the the tab. So how do we define that relationship? Well, that relationship is defined on the object itself, okay? And the place that we do it is, there's this standard buttons and links. Now, this does not necessarily have to do just with, buttons and links. It also has to do with, okay, when I'm editing a record, am I going to utilize the page layout, or perhaps I'm going to utilize a visual force page? Okay. So let me see if I have something in this case. I do actually. Okay. So in this case here, I have a visual force page called canned template. And if I override the edit, what that means is that when a user is editing a candidate record, instead of going to the page layout, that user will go to the visual force page, whatever visual force page that I select. So it's really, it's overridden from an action standpoint for what you want to do. That's what determines what will be utilized. Okay? So whether it be an S-control visual force page or a page layout. Oh. But that is defined on the object itself. Okay? All right.
I have a question.
Yeah, shoot.
So what's the visual force page that you've been talking about? How does that look like, or what is it?
Visual force pages. So I've been probably kind of referring to these things, but we haven't really gotten into them yet. Visual force pages are, think of them as intelligent HTML type pages, which allow for server-side data binding, and by that I mean we can dynamically insert record values when the page is requested at the server. And we're going to spend the last day and a half talking about visual force pages, but they are custom web pages in which we have a markup language that allows you to do dynamic things in terms of data binding and generating. We can do AJAX kind of stuff. We can recreate the standard Salesforce and look and feel. But at the end of the day, visual force pages allow us a great amount of control over controlling the web user interface and doing very custom things.
So is this sort of like an application like this, like recruiting tab?
Yeah, I'll just show you one right now. So for instance, in this case, here's a review page with a flash control. And so this is, what we're looking at here is, this is a visual force page. And this is just a little preview. But the visual force page contains a lot of visual force markup, which may or may not include standard web content. Like I said, it has the data binding expression syntax, and it has a bunch of default visual force components. And so in this case, we created a custom page, and notice here that I have this flash control. So I've embedded some flash into my page because it does take standard web content. So it allows us to create custom, web-based interfaces which are dynamic, and have those execute within the context of our internal Salesforce applications, or in the case of Force.com sites, which is a new feature, have externally facing websites that use Visual Force. Okay? Does that, okay, well, like I said, we're going to devote a day and a half to them, so we'll definitely come back to that. All right. Okay, so let's keep moving along here. All right. Yeah, so you can switch between different layouts. You can drag and drop elements to add them to pages. There's an undo and a redo button for, pretty straightforward. You can create your own custom buttons. Those are actually custom buttons are defined at the object level. So if we jump back here, here's my object. So let me try and find one where I have a custom button. So not only can I create standard buttons and links, I can also create custom buttons that go to, you know, different locations, and maybe they open up Visualforce pages. You know, they can do all different types of stuff. Okay, but then you could then drag and drop those custom buttons onto your page layout so that your users can then have something to call. Okay. Yeah, you can collapse. There's a quick find. If you have a large number of fields, you can just type in the first few letters and it'll filter whatever it is you're looking for. So kind of a cool thing. So if we're editing a page layout and we're looking for something specifically, let's say we're looking for, you know, max pay. By typing in M, it limits it to things that start with M. So, all right, blank spaces. So if you want to explicitly put a blank space in, what you do is there's actually a field here, blank space. Just drag that down there and it inserts a blank space. So, all right, so let's exercise 3-3. This is definitely something that's learned best through doing. So it's a pretty flexible tool. So we'll spend some time working on this. You're going to update your page layout to do a bunch of different stuff. Okay. Okay. So can you show me which you're referring to in the object definition, overriding the buttons, or?
No, I'm creating sections for this. When you drag and drop a section or click, or just double click another one of the existing sections in the page layout.
Okay, let me just click on the page layout editor. Okay. And then,
for example, in the information section.
Oh, okay.
If you could double click, for example.
Oh, okay.
It says it's not going to be seen in the tail page.
Oh, my bad. This detail page is, think of this as being view mode versus edit mode. So with the page layout, there's two sort of ways that it exists. One is in a read-only view mode, and then the other way is in when you're actually editing it, you click on the edit button. If we click cancel here.
When we say edit, we are not talking about editing the layout, we are talking about editing the record.
The record, yeah.
Both users then.
So if, for instance here, if I click on a specific record, and right now I'm looking at a particular page layout, but it's only in the view mode, and now here the edit is a different view because now I have a bunch of, you know, single line entry fields and so on and so forth. So that's what that's referring to is do you want me to only display this when the user is editing, or do you want me to display it in both cases? So yeah, I probably should have pointed that out, that there's the one column and the two column, and then there's the way that the tabbing is done. You can control that, and if you create a custom one, you can also control, you know, give it a name, give it a unique name. So.
One last question was.
Yes.
Sometimes it refers to enhanced page layout editor and some regular page layout editor. What are those? The ones that we are using enhanced?
I'm sorry, you said so the question is the page, sorry?
Enhanced page layout editor.
Oh, this is the enhanced. Okay, okay. Good question. There's what this is referring to is, let me see if I can find if it's even something you can turn off. So if you click on, in your setup menu, there's under Customize, you can customize the user interface. And everyone has this enabled, but this is the Enable Enhanced Page Layout Editor. And right now we are currently on version 16, which is summer 09, but in version 15, which was spring 09, the Enhanced Page Layout Editor was released. And to show you what the old one looks like, so if I just turned it back off. Now if I go back to my, actually, yeah, okay. So if I go back here, and then I click on that I want to edit the page layout, I'll get the old page layout editor, and this is the old page layout editor. So it's just less dynamic. You know, it's roughly the same where you do some drag and drop. I'm sorry, what is it? Oh. No, that's for the section. Well, anyways, this is the old page layout editor. So that's what it was referring to with the enhanced one. It's newer, you know, newer and better, more dynamic. So, yeah. It's only enhanced if you've used the old one, though. So, all right, let me quickly turn that back so next time I go there, I won't be completely confused. There we go. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. So, quiz questions.
So that didn't work. We were trying to deflect you from the quiz question.
It did not. I'm back on the. I'm not going to forget that. So, true or false? When building a custom application, developers can include a custom logo for that app. So, Talon?
Yes.
Yes. True. Yeah. So, in our case, we had that universal container logo. Marat. True or false? When choosing a style for a custom object tab, developers can create custom styles.
It's true, but we don't see how yet.
Yeah, I'm sharp details. Let's see here. You are correct. I think I mentioned this, but when you create, if you create a new tab, it's hard to see, but up here there's a button that says create your own style, and so this is where you can do like a custom image and then a color. You select a color type thing, so you can do that. Okay. All right.
But there's no different style, if you may. Like for example, right now it's kind of like rounded edge and stuff.
Oh.
I can only customize the color, but not the look and feel of the tab. Is that correct?
Correct. So there's, you know, the Salesforce style is the Salesforce style, and you know, you have the ability to create, you know, to easily create things to adhere to that style. What you do not have is you don't have the ability to edit, like, I mean, at the end of the day, they're CSS files, cascading style sheets, and you don't have the ability to edit those or create your own custom one or whatever it may be. Now, in a visual force page, you can. So in a visual force page, you can either make a copy of the existing cascading style sheets, or you can create your own cascading style sheet and do something, you know, stylistically more what you want. But when it comes to Salesforce and things like page layouts, then you're using our style. Okay. So, all right. All right. Then Lyra, you're up. List things that can be customized on a page layout.
Field positions, page sections,
Okay.
the buttons,
Yeah.
related lists.
Very good.
Field properties.
Very good. All right, fantastic. Yeah, so you named pretty much all of them, but the properties associated with different fields, the location, things like you can drag and drop buttons onto the custom buttons area. You can identify which related lists that you'd like to display, properties associated with those sections and related lists. So those are really the main things. If a field is made read-only or required on a page layout, what happens if a user accesses that field through the Web Services API? Mauricio.
It's made read-only. It can be displayed, but it can be changed.
Yeah, so anything that you do through the page layout, if you're not using the page layout, it doesn't affect the behavior of the underlying object. Like it says here, if it's read-only, well, only if you're using that page layout, okay? If you're using the data loader, it doesn't apply, okay?
For more information on Salesforce.com training and certification, please visit www.salesforce.com/training.